Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for being on and welcome back for those of you who were here for my first session. And welcome to those who are coming on for the first time. You have just joined a mini series that I'm doing called Uncharted Waters, and it's actually coupled with the release of my first single. And so just so you understand it, I'm doing 3 parts of a session, and then immediately after the final session will be the release of my song. Now, this theme, Uncharted Waters, is an interesting term, and I would have shared yesterday that is really a term that relates to going and venturing into a place that is new and unfamiliar. That's the essence of it. A place that's never been explored, never been surveyed, never been mapped, but it's really a place that is new and unfamiliar. And so in the context of your individual life, my individual life, what God is really sharing with us is some keys that can help us to be able to navigate these waters well. Okay, now today I'm going to focus on an area, specific area, which is pitfalls to avoid. What are some of those pitfalls that we can avoid as we are about to embark on what God is calling us to do? And again, as I would have shared yesterday, this is really personal to you. You may be feeling the stirring, sensing the unction to do something or to do a particular thing or go after a particular area that as God has led you to. And, you know, it's coming at a time where you're not sure about everything. You're not sure. You don't have all the things together, but you know that it is God. And he's just sharing some things that hopefully can help you to move forward in that. All right. So firstly, I wanted to just say this thing here. Our focus must remain in God's truth over us. When we use this word remain, we mean that we should have a steady hope and trust that God will work it out. God wants us to find the place in our hearts that holds on to what he has said, and let that be our anchor. All right. So as we are moving forward, as we are venturing into whatever it is that God is calling us to, he wants us to have an anchor. We know that our anchor is Jesus Christ, and we know that it is the word that he has spoken in us and over us, and really and truly it is just God having the ability in our hearts to be able to keep us steady because we trust in his word. All right. So I now want to go into some of the pitfalls as I would have shared earlier. These are some pitfalls that God has just outlined for us to avoid. So number 1, do not bash against what God is doing in others. Not that we do not hold men accountable for their actions, or that we ourselves are not held accountable for our own, but we should be very slow to bash. And when I say bash, this is what it really means. Bashing is about hitting forcefully and repeatedly against something or someone. And he's saying, no, we need to be very, very slow in this season to bash against what we are unable to see clearly. All right. So that's the first point. Do not bash against what God is doing in others. The second one is this. Do not conform to the circumstances around you. God does not want us to accept those things which will come just because it is easier and lighter on the hearts and lives of men. And we know that many times we have this temptation to compromise or to not give it our all, or to give a particular part of the thing because we don't want to necessarily seem as if or seem a particular way, I should say, in the light of others, in the eyes of others. But here God is saying, no, I don't want you to conform to the circumstances around you. I don't want you to begin to adjust and tailor yourselves based on what you're sensing in the environment, or sensing based on other people's opinions and other people's suggestions. We must hold fast to what God is saying to us in this time. So what's number 2? Do not conform to the circumstances around you. The third thing is this. He says, do not fake the understanding that you have. Yep. Do not fake the understanding that you have. In other words, do not issue false opinions nor hopeless constructs for the sake of appearing to know. And when God said this, I was like, whoa. But this is so true. Many times we feel as if we have to say a thing, or we have to be a thing, or we have to do a thing. And we do it because we want to appear as if we know. And God is saying to us and cautioning us that no, in this time and in this season, as He's taking us into that place or that space or that area in our lives, that we may not necessarily have all the answers, and we may not have a model before us to say this is how it was done. That He's saying, I understand that, but I want you to know that I don't want you to fake your understanding. Don't try to appear to know before men, but just allow Him to lead and to guide us. So as we journey along this particular path of our lives, I just really want to encourage all of us with these three things, because as we really chart ourselves, or I should say, as we go into what is as is termed for this particular series, Uncharted Waters, there's so many things that can easily come. There's so many things that can sway us in a different direction. But really is to be mindful of what God desires for us. Now, the first thing is this: go in the strength of the Lord and not in the frailty of our might. Let me say that again. Go in the strength of the Lord and not in the frailty of our might. And I like those two contrasts, right? Because for us, we may believe and feel like if we've got this, this is our might, this is our strength. We want to apply pressure, we want to apply some weight because we have the connections and we know how to do it and all these things. But God is saying to us, no, those things are so frail. Those things will just kind of dwindle away so easily. And He's saying to us, no, I don't want you to go in the frailty of your might. I want you to go in the strength of the Lord. The second thing is this: find rest in God and not in our own abilities. Kind of stemming from the first one. But again, this one now speaks to the wrestling that we have sometimes as relates to our abilities to do. We want to be able to get it done. We want to move forward. And sometimes we put things in place, and it may not be how He wants it to be. And when we see that, the question now becomes, how then do you respond? God is saying, look, I want you to rest in me. I want you to rest in me. So find rest in God and not in our own abilities. And then the last one is this: endure until the end, remain focused, and keep going. And this, I think, although it's a very simple statement, let's picture ourselves literally about to step onto the water. Let's picture ourselves literally about to do whatever it is that God has called us to do, that we have absolutely no kind of understanding. I should say no kind of understanding, but the full context is not there. The plan isn't there. Everything laid out before us. But God is saying to us, look, even as you are about to take this step, I want you to endure until the end, because this is a journey. This is a journey. This is a journey, and it will come with its process. It will come with different avenues and different pathways, but He wants us to remain focused and to keep going. All right. Now, similar to what I would have done yesterday, right before I ended the session, I would have just shared what I thought the Lord wanted to just kind of declare over us today. And so I'm going to kind of wrap up again with that. All right. So this is what I believe the Lord is saying to us. He wants us to immerse ourselves in His truth, because the truth will be the precipice of His calling us into the deep unknown. This is a time when He will uphold His truth before us like a slate plainly written and understood. He says He's drawing us to a pathway that engages the power of His Spirit like never before experienced in our lifetime. Fit will be those who trust in Him, as He is moving vehemently toward the place once instituted, that which seemed far and unreachable, but will suddenly appear on the shoreline, and lo and behold, in our midst. So God is asking us to immerse ourselves in the truth of His Word. And that is it for today's session. Again, just keeping it short and keeping it precise to what He has said in obedience. And I pray that it has been indeed a blessing to you. I pray that as you, continue to just listen to what He's saying, inquiring of him to see what it is that he really desires for you to do in this time and in this season, that truly you will be reminded of what he wants and what he desires at the end. At the end of all that he is asking us to do, we know that it is for his glory.